I am fed up of business gurus sounding like they're reading a horoscope saying, you just need to believe in your idea more, or any other of their mantras. Nothing makes me happier or more productive than getting a clear path to the goal of building a profitable business. That's why in this video, I will walk you through the fundamental steps that you need to take to grow your business from absolutely nothing to a life-changing experience. Each of these steps will come with free digital tools and criteria so that you know when to move on to the next one. I'm Joel. I've started a few businesses over the last decade, with my first becoming an ASOS.com partnered brand. I've since been a growth advisor for over 100 startup teams who have gone on to make millions, and I'm now devoting my career to simplifying that path to success for founders. Here in front of me is the complete business checklist, where you can go from absolutely nothing to exponential growth and your life being completely different to how it is now. You can get your own version of the digital board and all the supporting tools completely free in the link below. And you don't actually need to be at step one for this to work. If you're a little bit further along in the journey, I am sure that you'll realize something that you haven't done along the way. And that is probably the cause of the problems that you're having right now in your business. Right, let's do it. Step one on the list is customer discovery and problem solution mapping. Most startups technically fail on day one because they start to build something that people don't actually want or need. In fact, according to the data, 42% of all startups fail because of no market need. So here's the first non-negotiable step. You need to talk to real customers to make sure they actually want what you're building. A nice solid goal would be to get 20 in-depth conversations with people in your target segment. And we're looking for pain points or moans that regularly come up in these conversations about something that doesn't work as they want it to. And the real test here is, are the people actively trying to solve the problem? If they are, and they're not happy with the results or the current solutions, then that's good news for your business. And if they're not, chances are that it's not painful enough for them to actually pay for a solution if you built it. If you skip this session, you are gambling your time and your energy working on something that is just going to be harder to sell forever. Believe me, from first-hand experience, it's so much easier to spend your time now getting it right rather than wasting years of your life on something that was just never going to scale. And if you're a little further ahead in business and everything is currently feeling like an uphill battle, this might be why. If you're struggling with customer discovery, I made a whole video about it here. Okay. Once you know the pain and the problem you are trying to fix, we want to map out the solutions. I'm sure you've probably come into this with a rough idea of what you wanted to build, but please be open-minded about building a slightly different solution to that same problem. Because if you're not, and you don't build the perfect thing for your customer, then the first competitor who does is going to ruin your chances at building the size business that you probably want. Okay, step two. Risky assumptions. So you have an idea, even if it's a rough one. We need to list every single reason that this idea might not work. It sounds backwards, right? But most founders usually get caught up in how great their creations are and how wonderful their future is going to be. And that's probably because the majority of us are optimists, hence why we thought this was going to work, hence why we gave it a go in the first place. Well, what I'm encouraging you to do is take some time to write out the risky assumptions we are making that need to be true for the future success of our business. So some examples of that is, will the customer actually pay for this? Can you deliver it profitably? Will people understand how to properly use it how you intended? Write down the biggest risks that could kill your business. It is scary, but it is so much better to face these risks head on and be completely aware of them so that you know how to avoid catastrophe when it comes for you, rather than just pretending that they don't exist in the first place and hiding away. On to the perfect customer avatar. Now, we want to define exactly who our early adopters are. These are the people who are most likely to need or want your product or service early on when it's not in its full form. Using your customer discovery conversations, you should be able to guess at their demographics. What do they care about? Where do they spend time digitally and physically? And here is why it's life or death. If you don't know your audience, you're going to spend all of your marketing budget shouting to the wrong people. Without successful marketing, you won't have any customers And if you don't have customers, you don't have a business. Then we want to use this perfect customer avatar to run very early stage tests to see if your hypothesis about these people needing this thing are correct. This is what people call traction, and traction really matters here. It is common knowledge amongst investors that early stage traction is the best signifier that this business is going to be a success. And they're going to know this because they gamble millions of pounds day in, day out on it. And just to make it crystal clear, this isn't about growth yet. It's about proving that you can get a certain group of people to care. Okay, now it's time to build something properly with minimum viable products and growth experiments. Not the full-blown shiny end version, but the simplest version of something that delivers on the core promise of what you do. So for example, Dropbox famously started with a simple 3-minute explainer video. They posted that, it got 75,000 signups overnight, which clearly showed them that people need this product. And I believe Airbnb started on Craigslist and then moved on to just a simple landing page with a couple of options of places to stay. And I think that people actually stayed in the founder's flat before they ever launched it to the public. This is your minimum viable product. You may have heard that term. Your MVP doesn't need to hit the news with its amazing achievements like those examples I just gave, but it does need to prove to you as the team and potential future investors that the thing you're building is worthwhile. Then we want you to use this MVP to run growth experiments. Test your pricing, test your onboarding flow, test your marketing messaging. Teams that actively test their assumptions and run experiments using their minimum viable product are far more likely to survive. One study found that 72% of successful startups began with an MVP that validated all their risky assumptions before they tried to scale. And from my years of experience mentoring and coaching founders, this is exactly where I see most of them quit on their dreams. It's actually quite savage, but it is one of those hurdles that people really struggle to get over, or they try to navigate around it, which is never a good idea. People build something quickly, they realize their idea wasn't very good in the first place, and instead of seeing it as a failure, I want you to see that as you saving yourself months or years working on the wrong thing, and it gives you a fresh chance to try again. Spend a little bit of time now building an MVP, and you will thank me later, I promise. Okay, moving on to customer feedback, pivoting, and achieving product market fit. Once some people are purchasing your product or using your product, we need to start building in feedback loops. Talk to customers every single week. Track your metrics, repeat purchases, churn, lifetime value, everything you can. If one of your core key metrics is low, then don't push forward to scale until you fix that. Keep making very small changes to your product or your business until you achieve what you wanted to achieve. It's small wins that stack up here, and it requires quite a lot of patience, but it's extremely satisfying when you get one of those big leaps forward. And it's the first time in your business that this will actually start converting to real world revenue jumps. Each win you get now drastically increases your potential at making a scalable business in the future. So just keep moving in the right direction using growth experiments. At this point, you need to think about product market fit. It's just a fancy way of saying that you have built something that a certain group of people actually want to pay for. And once you achieve real product market fit, it is actually harder to fuck it up than to get it right. So here's your criteria for this section. Don't move forward until you can see repeat usage from your customers, people happy to pay for the solution, and ideally some organic growth. Organic growth meaning you don't need to spend on marketing, people just tell their friends, it grows organically. Now, I'm excited because this is where shit gets fun. Again, go grab yourself a version of this completely free digital checklist with all the tools attached to it in the links on the board. This is the section that we call exponential growth. It may have taken you years to get to this point. If you did this in months, consider me impressed. Either way, with each item so far on the checklist ticked off, you are on the edge of becoming rich for the rest of your life. First up in this section is to build a strong brand. Why? Because a really strong brand reduces acquisition costs and increases customer retention. This means you can spend less on marketing and make more from every single one of your customers because they see you as something that they want to associate with. Once you have some decent metrics on your marketing, it is time to scale the marketing channels. Pick 2 or 3 of the channels that you tested in your growth experiments that you can put money into and get a consistent amount of money out of. Whether that's paid ads, contents, referrals, affiliates, whatever it is that's worked for you. Don't put large amounts of money into anything that is untested at this point. In fact, general rule of thumb in business. Write that shit up in bold, please, editor. Easiest way to lose everything, believe me. Next up, we want to automate our operations so that you're not drowning in work, because you will be the bottleneck in this situation at a certain point. This means outsourcing all those tasks that eat up time and hiring a team that you can trust and that you can scale with. And finally, the last point on this checklist is the only formula that you need to care about from now on. It's the ratio between how much it costs for you to get a customer to how much these customers are worth to you in their lifetime. At Grow, we use customer acquisition cost compared to the customer lifetime gross profit. And even though we've left it right to the end, this magic formula can be extremely valuable to you much earlier on in business. So, if you want to dive a little further into that formula, you can do so here.